Hello and welcome everyone to the Tech Sharmit podcast. Today I am here with another special guest, Jean-Georges Perrin. JGP is a visionary technologist, innovator, and a thought leader who has made a lasting impact in the tech industry. In fact, he is a lifetime IBM champion who is consistently contributing for the IBM community. So, in this episode, we will delve into John George's remarkable journey, exploring his innovative approaches to technology, his experience as a leader in the industry, and his vision for the future of AI and data. But before we start the discussion, I would like to thank John Georges for joining us today in this episode. And now I request you to please initiate the discussion by telling us something about yourself.
Well, Amit, so thank you very much for having me. I'm I'm honored, and you've been very kind and very patient with me. And so what I am is I'm right now my job and which I love is a chief innovation officer for a company called Abia Data. We do terrific things with data, and yeah, and that's kind of my plug. And I think you'll discover you said a lot. We'll discover more through the interview, but I'm also a PayPal champion, a data mesh MVP, and I live in upstate New York, not very far from one of your previous guests, PJ Catalano. We are
Yeah.
like 60 miles apart. Um, and so, yeah, so in great upstate New York, very near Massachusetts and New England.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I think now we are good to start with your journey. So could you please share your career story, like particularly how you started with this IT industry and what all things you have uh, achieved so far?
Well, you told me we have half an hour, okay? So I'm going to make it brief because it
Yeah.
can actually last. So something I haven't shared with a lot of people is the click, okay? So the time that I discovered IT and that I knew that I wanted to do something with, maybe not as a career, but was I went with my dad to a store, a bit like Best Buy, but they had called La Fnac in France, and they had computers at that time. It was the early 80s, late 70s, and they had a computer, they had an Apple II. Okay. And my first thing is that's where I pressed the key, and I think it was kind of the magic that happens there. Then as I think you know, as being a kid in the 80s, um it, it was where we could have a computer and it didn't have to work. You know, you could it's not like my Mac right now or my iMac, or I've got too many Macs anyway. But the thing is, you want them to be operational. There are tools that you want to be operational. At that time, it was just a machine which whom you can play, interact, break, even, I mean, software at least. So you could do a lot of things without the risk. Okay. So it was really something that was really welcoming experimentation. Um after high school, my dad kind of convinced me to not go to IT. That was not a success because I wanted to go to IT. He was my dad was pretty much he's still pretty much ahead of his time, and he said, well, you know, we it was the late 80s. And we were saying things like there was no future for developers. Automation will take over, and developers are not going to be needed. Well, uh, is people would say, oh, maybe it was wrong then, but I think what happened is it's probably coming now. Uh,
Right.
so with the advance of AI. But anyway, so I studied electronics for a little bit and then went back to IT because that's really what I wanted to do, and start software. When I came out of college with an engineering degree in computer science, I started, like everybody, you get the first job you get, and that. And I feel that over my career, I never really had control over what I really wanted to do. Even if I was an entrepreneur for a long time. But at some point, I decided to also to move to the US. I moved to the US in on an E1B visa, so which sounds great. You get a green card, but you don't get a job with your green card. Okay,
Yes.
so uh, I often say that I kind of face a choice. I could actually be a taxi driver in New York or an IT consultant. I decided to be an IT consultant that gave me a little bit of more of a broader spectrum of what was the work in the US, which was a little bit different than from France. And since roughly 10 years now, a little less than 10 years, I've been, being a consultant. I went to Fortune 500 companies like Advance Auto Parts and PayPal. And but the entrepreneur spirit was I was missing that. So that's why about a little less than a year ago we started with a company called Abia Data. So that's my career, trying to compress a lot.
Okay. Yeah, your journey looks quite inspiring because you have explored various things throughout your journey. Because I think you were also involved in the creation of uh, Pandemonium, one of France's first commercial ISPs outside of Paris. So, can you share your experience in the early days of the internet in France, and how has that shaped your career?
Yeah, so it was it's been interesting. To be honest, the thing is, I think I didn't realize that yet at that time, but uh I was really attracted by anything that it was innovation. Okay.
Hmm.
And that was very innovative at that time.
Right.
But and my master's project was to do an online candy store, and that was back in '95. The company was created about the same time. So while I was finishing my master, we created a company, first a couple of companies around that theme. And but people didn't get it. Okay, people didn't see that. Yeah, okay, what's the point of ordering
Hmm.
candies on the internet? And uh because say it was not there, people were not projecting themselves. Okay, so I think that some things that I even if I was in the midst of this revolution, I took a long time to realize that you've got to explain a lot what innovation is bringing to you. And my engineer mind, I would say, was really into thinking more like, okay, we're engineers.
Right.
It's obvious to us. Okay, it's obvious why we're doing things at some point, especially after a little bit of time in your career. But when you're talking to non-engineer, you've got to convince, you've got to explain, and I think I took probably a little bit too long time to realize that. So, but that I think that's a key.
Okay. Okay, and just after the your success with the Pandemonium, you co-founded Awoma, which focused on simplifying the Java development. So, what motivated you to transition from ISP to software development, and how did your previous experience influence your approach with Awoma?
So when we created the ISP, I was not working full time with them. I was kind of
Okay.
the advisor. I brought the idea, brought the team together. Um, but the company kind of went its own way. At some point, I was thinking about joining them, but the thing is, what was really driving me was software. Um, and prior to at the same time that Pandemonium was starting and being a success, I was working for a company called 4J's Development Tools,
Okay.
which was building development tools. Very obvious name for the company. And they were they were working on creating tools that were um, for GL. for Informix 4GL. And I think that they had a Informix 4GL was a great invention. It was a fourth generation language, um, very abstract from the bits and bytes of the computers. Completely, when you're thinking about Java, where you've got to use three classes to open a file. 4GL is a little bit more like COBOL in a way that, okay, I open a file and it opens. I don't have to worry it's a stream or blah 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 whatever. um so there was this level abstraction that was really targeting towards making a business application very very fast. And I love the philosophy of 4GL,
Mhm.
and I tried to reuse this philosophy as part of Java. Okay, so having and that was in the around 2002. Okay, so when you think about that, and the maturity of Java was kind of maybe 4 or 5 years old at that time. So it was still a very young language. A lot of people were still doing things in C, and and Java didn't get this maturity until later. And we created this framework with this company Awoma. That was a little bit what struts is. Okay, so
Okay.
except that when you struts, for people who know, it's a completely open source free. The business model is completely different. We kept the business model of what we knew, which was really licensing for compiler and licensing for runtimes, for basically developer seats and for users. And this just didn't work. Okay, so it was working for 4GL because that was what Informix at the time created, and that was kind of the business models that people inherited from the 80s. But in the early 2000s, it was already too late. It was already 2000 to open source. So we created. I think we created a very good product, but the market fit on the business model was not there. So, but hey, you've got to learn. So
Okay. Yeah. All right. And those who don't know, like we all know that John Georges is the lifetime IBM champion. But not only this, he is the first French citizen to be recognized as an IBM champion in 2009. So, what did this recognition mean to you, Georges, at that time, and how has it influenced your work in the years since?
it is it has been a great honor to my link with IBM at that point was through Informix. Okay, so Informix was acquired in two phases, but the first phase with all the databases and so on was in 2001. So since 2001, I was still working a lot with Informix, and I still love Informix as a database. And as it was acquired by IBM, that's how I kind of got into the IBM world. But I still battled and championed Informix, and that's how I got into this IBM Champion program. Um, I was part of, at the same time as the International Informix User Group.
Okay.
I was on the board for 15 years, and it was really, you know, this community and extending this community through IBM Champions, that was really something that I felt really honored. Um, then a few years ago, I became a lifetime IBM champion. We're about 30 people like that in the world.
Okay.
So that's a very, for me, it's a very high honor and a very high recognition. But from 2009 to now, um, I did not have the traditional career you can imagine. Like, hey, I work in a company, and you know, and you just grow in the company you are. I've changed. I moved. I created companies uh, in Luxembourg, in France, in Morocco, in the US. I've worked in some of them, invested in some of them, and all that is was a very dynamic environment, and in terms of it was always very technology oriented, but it was not always linked to IBM technology, and it was not always um, but not by choice, but by kind of an obligation.
Mhm.
See, since 2009, the only consistent thing in my career has to be an IBM champion. Okay, so that's why it's very strong for me, and the fact that I've been that for more than 15 years now is is really something. It's really something part of my. It's part of my DNA, right? So, and I but I IBM and my relationship with IBM as I I am a big fan of their way of delivering stuff and their
Okay.
visionary. Okay, I love discussing with and seeing talks with people like Rob Thomas. I've I really enjoy listening to Arvind when especially before he was a CEO, he was head of R&D, and those guys have such. You said I was a visionary, but
Yeah.
those guys have a visionary not only for technology but for technology applied to business, and this is just fantastic. Okay, so and you know I like to compare IBM to an old lady. Okay,
Mhm.
she's over 112 years old, uh, but she's been leading for all that time. So you can look at other companies that have been doing tech. Okay, everybody can think about Apple um, or HP or those companies have lost a lot over the years. So, and IBM has managed to maintain things
Yes.
and their leadership. Okay, and when you're thinking about AI, sure, OpenAI is more probably more known to the common person about what they did with ChatGPT, but IBM has been working on AI for I don't know many years, and they had a sales strategy like for the last 10 years. Was it successful? That's not for me to say. Okay,
Mhm.
but the thing is, in terms of technologies, they've been really inspiring and paving the next generation and keeping up with that more than I would say a Microsoft or an Apple for me, especially in terms of you know as a B in IBM is business. Okay, so it's really about the business world we're involving. We not the consumer world in a way.
Yeah. I completely agree with you here. Like, yes, IBM is growing by the time very rapidly, and they have improved a lot of things in their working culture, and many things are there. So yeah, I'm agree with it. And now, like, your career has spanned several decades, and you have uh, seen the tech industry undergo a significant changes. So, what advice would you give to professionals seeking to build a long and successful career in the dynamic field of IT industry?
I think there's three things.
Hmm.
I think there's you've got to keep being curious.
Okay.
Um, you've got to be naive,
Hmm.
and you've got to be honest.
Right.
And you know, yeah, it's been and you reminded me it's almost 30 years I've been working now. Um, I'm not retiring anytime soon, but I've seen a lot of people in my career, especially in my age range, where they've been doing the same thing for 20 years, 25 years. And at some point, they lost their job. They a life event happened. You don't know what's that,
Right.
but their knowledge did not evolve. They kept in a way they 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 use what they had, they use what they built in their 5 or 10 years of the first 5 or 10 years of their career, and they stayed there, and then they're struggling. They're a lot there, a few happy few, because these technologies, they're maybe experts in those technologies, and maybe those technologies are kind of going a little bit down, so they're still bunkable because there's a few experts that stays there, but that's a minority. So I
Right.
think it's really, if you want, you're in for a marathon, okay, but a marathon of learning. You've got to keep learning. You've got to keep educating yourself. I remember when I was in France, I organized a few events, a few, like, meetups before they were called meetups, or little
Okay.
conferences, uh, because I really wanted people to share their knowledge. And in France, you've got 5 weeks of paid vacation.
Okay.
Okay. Um, and I remember when I was inviting people to come to the conference, some of them were telling me, "Oh, I can't come because I didn't get a day off to go there from my boss. Okay. He didn't want me to come on company time to,
Okay.
to, to the conference." And this is something that struck me in a much of a way, saying that this is not an acceptable answer for me. If you
Mhm.
can't take a day from your vacation, from your 5 weeks of vacation you have, okay, like 25 days
Right.
over a year, if you can't take one of these days to go to a conference to learn something, you should not be in this career. You should not be
Right.
in IT. Okay. You need to invest in yourself, for
Yes.
the future. And so this is something that is really, it really matters. Okay. The thing is, of
Yes.
course, there's a work-life balance. Of course, you need vacation. Of course, there's a lot of these things, but you also need to invest in your own career and your own future.
Correct.
Okay. There's no, I think it changes a little bit. When I started in IT, I knew that I would have to learn all over, all the time, over and over again. Okay. So but it was not obvious like that for a lot of jobs back in the 90s. You were a doctor, things were moving slowly. Okay. You were a bus driver, things were moving slowly as well. Now everything has changed so much, but in IT, it accelerates even more. Like, hey, if you don't know what linear regression is when you're starting to do AI, you better learn a little bit of math. If you want to understand, you don't have to know how an LLM works to use them, but if you want to contribute to it, it's probably better than to learn a little bit how those things are working. Okay. So there's always, I think there's this effort on you. It's your responsibility
Yes.
to learn, and that's why it's also great to have guys like you that, hey, almost at 2,000 videos, about sharing your knowledge. Okay. So I think this is what people needs to understand. And that's how you stay relevant. I think it's stay relevant. Okay. You can't be complacent and just stay there. And then you've got people saying, "Oh, I've got let go from XYZ because I was 55." It's not because you're 55, it's because you're not relevant anymore.
Yes. Right. Okay. Yeah. So now we would love to hear more about your other skills. Like you have authored several books and contributed to various magazines as well. So, what initially inspired you to contribute as an author, and how the things got started there?
So it started back in 93.
Okay.
So yeah, there's barely any trace of this book. It was called An Approach of C,
Okay.
and it was self-published. So self-published in '93 means you go to a copy to a photocopy shop and you do photocopies of the book, you
Okay.
bind them and you sell them. So it was really the full line of work. It started because my best friend at the time um, was and we were not bad students. Okay,
Okay.
I was passionate about IT, and a lot of people had issues with C and what a pointer is. Okay, how does memory work in C? How do you build a link chain and things like that? So all that was really tough for a lot of our fellow students there, and so they were coming to us, and that was my first 2 years was kind of a community college ish kind of thing, after before I went to engineering school, uh, but in the years between the summer we said we Fred and I we kind of looked at each other and say, okay, well, if we want to help our our friends, okay, and fellow students there, maybe we should do a book, okay, and that's how we did it. So we spent the summer. We wrote a book. It was about 300 pages. So I can tell you, it was a lot of work, and we and we published it. Okay, so um I think we sold 50 copies, but
Okay.
anyway, so that gave me this passion of sharing knowledge, and which can take many different ways. Okay, it can be through books, it can be through uh going at conferences, and you can explore different styles. Okay, so the first time I actually was published was after moving to the US. I wrote this one, Spark in Action,
Okay.
and Rob Thomas wrote the foreword. I just finished, and it's going to be available very soon. Implementing data mesh
Okay.
with Eric Broda. I also contributed and worked with Nick Tunes on modern architecture modernizing.
Okay.
With modernization, which is something I like a lot, architecture, software architecture. But I've been also able to experiment with different kind of books. So for example, I created data mesh for all ages,
Okay.
which has been translated in 8 languages. I had the data contract for all ages. This one was released a little earlier this year. Uh, and this one, which you're going to see very soon, it's called Building a Modern Data Platform, which I wrote with my friend and partner Kim Fees about how to build a data platform using Legos.
Okay.
So the thing is, it's to share. It's about being experimental, about being foolish a little bit, and see what people like. Okay, so the first for all ages book. People kind of loved it, and so yeah, and it's not about making money, because when you self-publish you really don't make money. So most of the profits that I'm making on the kit book are going to charities, so that's also
Okay.
another way to contribute to sharing, to helping people in IT.
Okay. So we are very glad to hear that there are some lined up content as well, which is coming in the upcoming days. So we are so happy to hear that, and thanks for contributing a lot for through your books, because when I got to know about that, there are many community who is actually utilizing those knowledgeable books in order to improve their skills. So you are really doing a great job being a IBM champion as well as an author. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, like we have many topic to discuss, but just because of the limitation of time, I would like to ask my last question to you. Like
Sure.
you are known for inspiring others, right? In community, like you have inspired many of us. So, but who has been your greatest source of inspiration?
I I don't know. I know it was my homework to do that. The thing is, I think the list is very long. As I was saying, is a story about going with my father to with my dad to the Fnac in France. uh, that was probably some things that was my early inspiration.
Okay.
Um, IBM leaders, like I mentioned, Rob Thomas and Arvind, I've been some inspiration. Um, People less known has been some inspiration as well. I've got one of my best friend, if not my best friend, Stuart Lytle, who was the president and of the Informix International Informix User Group, and was an IBMer until recently, who was also an inspiration. So there's really a lot of people. I did not. I'm very shy. That's maybe surprising to you, but I'm very shy. So I've never asked anyone you know who who would be a mentor.
Okay.
I had a lot of people through my career. I had people that helped me, advisors, and I'm thinking right now of a friend called François Borolo, who was by coincidence at IBM in France, who also helped me. So there was a lot of there's a lot of people if that helped me throughout my career, and inspired me. I'm happy that you find that I'm inspiring. I'm not doing that for inspiring people. I don't know. The thing is,
Yes.
I'm not trying to. It's not my goal. It's really about going forward, making eventually someone's life better.
Yes.
Um, so 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 right now I'm contributing a lot to not open source but open standard as well. I think that in data engineering, we've reached a plateau where everything is becoming more and more complex. And if we don't align against standards, and open standards, we will be a little bit condemned to relive all the time all the different things we've already done. Um, so that's why I went to the Linux Foundation, created Bitool last year, and that's maybe that's my next level of inspiration. And I don't know, but it's not. I don't live for that. It's more really let's move things forward. Hopefully, and hopefully, life of people will get better, and we will be in a safer world and things like that. It's more that than really. I don't mind having a Wikipedia page. Okay, so to be honest, the thing is, it's more. This is I like more the idea of together we're building something together. I've got an incredible team at BA Data. I've got an incredible team with Beetle, and seeing these people being develop themselves, being better at that doing every time. That's what kind of makes me happy.
Okay. So thank you so much, John Georges, for joining us in this episode and for sharing your expertise and experience with us. It helps a lot to all those audience who also wanted to make their career in this particular IT industry. So thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you, and feel free to reach me on LinkedIn.
Thank you.